a lovely weekend that I'm glad to. For the first time, we are having what we call a YouTube live. We have never hold the we have never had this before, and so it is a pleasure to meet you here now. So therefore, fellow Africans, as we had agreed, since it's a weekend, uh, we have done 50 episodes so far, and so the purpose for this live, it is a special live in terms of it is for the first time. Indeed, we are having a YouTube live because we have been able to make episodes, and so it's a time that after making those episodes, they have enabled us to reach some requirements or some requisite conditions for us to be able to hold a live. So therefore, fellow Africans, this morning I have some very specific areas that we'll be focusing on regarding the what we have been doing all over, because 50 episodes, if you calculate the days, we started this on 13th of January in 2020, this year 2025, and then we have been able until yesterday, which was on 21st of March 2025. Those are 69 days to be able to do 50 episodes of the Change for African campaign. So but 59 days, it is 69 days, I mean, it is not a walk in the park, but we have been able to carry this out and be able to come this far. So therefore, fellow Africans, I must say that I'm very happy and very glad. And so we are having a reflection on our journey so far for the 50 episodes. We call it the first half of the daily episode of the Change for African campaign, because we are foreseeing, or our plan is to do 100 episodes. Because we all know that a best dancer or a good dancer knows when to leave the stage. And so therefore, we are not leaving the stage soon, but we'll be doing 50 episodes of the Change, another 50 episodes, because we have done the first half of them, which were 50 episodes of the Change for African campaign, discussing things about Change for African campaign. Because when we started this, remember, we came up with 5 pillars of the Change for African campaign, and the 5 pillars were governance, discussing about governance. We had potential of Africa. We are discussing about resources of Africa. That's number 3. Number 4 was that the living standards of the people of Africa. And then number 5 was about the climate change that the people of Africa face. So those are the 5 areas we have been focusing on, and carrying and carrying on these episodes every day concerning those pillars, because every day is assigned a pillar. In each day we have a pillar that we're discussing, and that is what makes our daily episodes, and we've been able to do 50 of them. It is a milestone indeed, and we are making progress about Africa. We have been discussing so many things about Africa, and so that is the reflection we'll be having, and why this is very critical to discuss such areas in Africa. Those are very critical areas, speaking about Change for Africa, because speaking about governance here, as I said before, we are now talking about what we call governance in terms of what it is, the software of development. Governance is very important. Once our governance structures have problems, uh, that is when when our governance structures have problems, that is when we now we are not able to develop, because it is the software of development. And anything to do with development, it calls for people in place to be able to make these things happen. And so speaking about that, we spoke about governance and all that, and then we had the issue of potential. Indeed, we have immense potential, and potential is attributed. When you speak about potential, then we are trying to bring this back to what we call uh, about Africa, what it holds. We hold very many things, all the way from resources, human resource, the natural resources, and all those things. The population of Africa is so huge. So that is what gives Africa immense potential. And then number 3 was about resources. Indeed, connected to potential, we have a lot of resources. So these resources, once they are in place, the very brain, the very nut breaking thing is how these resources, who are the people here to be able to see to see growth in these resources? Who are the people to be able to multiply these resources to be able to cater for our to make Africa great? Because these are the resources that are going to make us earn some, a lot of money to be able to develop our countries. Mineral, and we shall be tackling that. I'm just giving a breakdown of what we hold, and then living standards, how our people live in Africa, all these situations and how they live. And then on climate change, we also had matters to do with climate change. Lots of them, the impacts of climate change, and how they just affect us as Africa. And so, and now after that, this is what now we have done 50 episodes. And then number two issue maybe that we shall be thinking about is the second half of our Change for African campaign daily episodes. That is the Change for African campaign daily episode. It is an ambition that we do another 50 episodes, of which we have done 50. I've said that before. And then the young mans of Africa have a very critical role to play in the society. Therefore, holding such kind of episodes, it is a way of engaging the young people directly on matters to do with Africa and what is happening in Africa. Because speaking about governance, people are now able to understand, how they relate with the current issues. And then, the first episode we have said we did it on 13th of January 2025 this year, and then the 50th episode was done on 21st of March this year. Those were 69 days. And then and so to some of our areas that we're going to discuss, because during those 50 episodes we had some very critical areas that I had to, that I used to do our daily episodes with. The areas such as the Africa Agenda 2063. It is a very dynamic area, about Africa. We had the African Continental Free Trade Area, very dynamic area in terms of Africa's ambitions towards development. And then we have the UNSDG, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We have the minerals and resources, just as we want to discuss that now. And so our very agenda number one, which is the Africa Agenda 2063, it is a 50-year blueprint for the continent transformation, which had 7 aspirations. And some of the aspirations, if I may just go through them, the Africa Agenda 2063. I remember it was adopted in 2015 by the heads of state by the African Union, so to say. And they had 7 aspirations. And I remember having gone through some of them because since there are 7, I remember we tackled 5 of them in a particular week. That they helped us to exemplify our episodes for 1 week, which were 5 episodes in a particular week. And so, if I may just go through them or something, it is a strategic framework for transforming the continent of Africa into a global powerhouse, adopted by the African Union in 2015. So as a 50-year work plan or a 50-year blueprint for to transform Africa and accelerate Africa in a couple of areas. We have the economic growth, we have the social development, regional integration. So the agenda envisions Africa we want, which builds up of past initiatives like the Lagos Plan of Action, and we have the new Partnership for Africa's Development (NIPAD). And so, if I may go through the aspirations, key aspiration of the agenda, Africa Agenda 2063. The very first agenda was a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, where you have underneath we have industrialization, agriculture, value addition, climate resilience, and sustainable resource management. Yeah, I remember us taking time to exemplify on this aspiration. If you can find time, one of our episodes, we actually used this aspiration to enable us to exemplify our Africa, to enable us exemplify some of our episodes, one of them. And so we had time and went through industrialization, because we are seeing what we call the industrialization over here. And we have agriculture, we have value addition, climate resilience, and sustainable resource management. We had time and went through that, and we saw that there is need because wanting a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, then and the subtopics of it were industrialization, agriculture, value addition, climate resilience, and sustainable development. These are kind of like interconnected aspiration, whereby they have to actually, if something is to, or if this aspiration is to be achieved, these are things that work hand in hand. Speaking about industrialization and speaking about agriculture, they kind of like relate to each other. So for us to be able to achieve this aspiration, then we needed to, well, we are yet to do much about it, but then we needed to have some more robust investment and people who care so much about what needs to be done and who really understand what needs to be done. Because when we speak about agriculture, we have some of the agricultural products that actually needs to go to the industries, and you find that actually in Africa we are yet to actually develop in both areas. Because speaking about industrialization, speaking about agriculture, until today we still have many African countries that do import even food from other continents. Until this day we have so many African countries that actually, speaking about industrialization, they do not have the requisite industries to be able to do any manufacturing, to do any processing of some goods that are very essential for the people of their country, African continent. And then value addition, this is whereby some of our products, instead of them actually being after some of the agricultural products, they can actually they can be taken to industries, and then they have we have what you call the value addition is done in those industries here in African countries before even they are maybe exported. But you find that is not the case. We have some products that are directly harvested from maybe our lands in Africa and then exported to other countries to do, and then value addition is done there, and then maybe the product is brought back. So that is one of the ways that one of the aspirations of the Africa Agenda 2063. And indeed, it is a good one. But you said for us to be able to achieve that, then you need to make sure that maybe what we're not doing right, we have to change the way we do things or the way we play the game. Climate resilience and sustainable development and all those things. Expression number two, an integrated continent, particularly no, politically united and based on ideas of Pan-Africanism, whereby free movement of people, goods and services, the African continental free trade area. So they want such Africa, still an issue of concern. And integrated Africa, we also had an African for good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the role of law, strengthening institutions and reducing corruption. That is also one of the aspirations of the Africa Agenda 2063. And I remember we actually found time to articulate this in one of the episodes that we have done before. Speaking about good governance, which is our first pillar actually. Governance is our first pillar of the Change for African campaign. So, what is the state of governance currently since this was adopted some 10 years ago in 2015? Speaking about democracy, are we really practicing the democracy that is supposed to be? Speaking about respect for human rights, is that the current situation of respect to the human rights? Speaking about justice and the rule of law, all these things, we have been seeing how things have been happening around. Speaking about justice, speaking about rule of law, these are not maybe things that have been happening, and then strengthening institutions and reducing corruption as under that aspiration. It is still an issue of for us to contest upon, because we still haven't been able to really uh, you know do enough in terms of being able to strengthen our institutions, and our institutions having that autonomy of carrying out the legal operations to be able to make sure that we have no fraud situations happening in our countries. And so it is still an issue whereby it is an aspiration, yes, but an ambiguous one to speaking in this context of Africa, because people are yet to take time and really understand that this is for the good of our continent of Africa. And then number four was a peaceful and secure Africa, silencing the guns initiative. Yeah. So speaking about silencing the guns initiative, you also find that still until today, actually, some areas have escalated to worse situations in terms of wars and conflict. Some parts of Africa. Speaking about DRC, it is a epitome example about wars. Just many places, and it is still the issue that is live and well. Maybe in West Africa, we still have such problems and escalating actually. So these were some of the aspirations, and we still have time to be able to see uh, really how far we would have done this, or how far by then, by 2063, would we have been able to achieve some commendable steps. And then number 5 is about an African with a strong cultural identity, and then common heritage, values, and ethics. A strong cultural identity, and all that we have to preserve our culture as an African continent. So promoting African languages, history, and indigenous knowledge. Yeah. So speaking about African languages, we do have to embrace them as Africa. And then number 6 is Africa, where development is people driven, relying on the potential of its youth and women, investing in education, innovation, and leadership development. And Africa, where development is people driven. Remember, in Africa, we have a very huge population. Africa has, we have a good human resource. Population of 1.4 to 1.2 to 1.4 billion people. That is a huge workforce, whereby majority of this population, or even around 60% of this population, are the youth actually, it is a huge workforce if Africa is able to invest in such population in a very in such population in a very good way. And then number 7 is a strong, united, and influential Africa on the global stage, strengthening Africa's position in global governance and trade. Speaking about influential Africa, Africa is influential currently in many terms, because what we hold, and the minerals and the resources that we have as Africa really speak about us being influential. So someone cannot underrate Africa in such ways. But it is time for Africa to continue strengthening the way it does things in those manners. So that is a breakdown also of the Africa Agenda 2063, what we discussed in a particular week about the Change African campaign. And our agenda number 2 was about the African Continental Free Trade Area, whereby we have discussed that under the Africa Agenda 2063, because under the Africa Agenda 2063, there is a way in which it is connected to the African Continental Free Trade Area. One of the aspirations is actually under that we have the African Continental Free Trade Area. So it's also an issue of concern. We also spoke about that, whereby uh, the very objective of this initiative was to create a single African market, boosting intra-African trade, to create a single African market, boosting intra-African trade. And we also spoke about that, and we saw some of the key benefits was eliminate trade barriers, making it easier for business to grow, strengthen internationalization and value addition in African, increase 30, increase the, especially for growth, increase opportunities, whereby employment opportunities, especially for growth, and then enhance economic independence by reducing reliance of foreign markets. Some of the challenges that we tackled were poor infrastructure, governance issues, lack of awareness among the African youth. Those are some of the challenges that we tackled. So these are issues that are live and well. These are issues that are calling for Africa to do some robust changes, to wake up. It is a wake up call for Africa in just many contexts. And then our agenda number 3, it is about the UNSDG, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And remember, there's also some of the episodes that we did concerning the UNSDG, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And some of the very thing that I had in my mind was that, or what we had in our mind was that some of these things are actually very hard to be able to, because I think it's by 2030 that they want to achieve this, but it is very hard to be able to reach at this, because this some of these things actually call for goodwill first, the human goodwill. So here we speak about governance. Once our governance structure are yet to be really well structured, then it still remains an issue of wait and see. And so, like, I remember us talking about poverty, no poverty, speaking about zero hunger, speaking about good health and well-being, quality education, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy. Some of these things we spoke about, and we said, for us to be able to really achieve some of these things, first we have to make sure that we are correcting the governance systems of Africa, because some of these systems are actually failing the way things should be happening. So once we have people of goodwill in place, once we have people who understand that we have some very basic things that need to happen, then that is when we can be able to we may be able to make some steps in terms of Africa development, or being able to achieve such goals, because these are global goals that we are part of it, to be able to achieve in our respective jurisdictions. That is Africa now. Speaking about no poverty, you need people of goodwill that understand that indeed you need people who are seeing in the future that this situation is not good. Then we can utilize what we have, the immense minerals we have, the immense resources we have, to be able to uh, eh, eliminate our people from the list of poverty, at least make people not live in the states of destitute in Africa. So that was about the UNSDG, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals, by the way, for those who don't know. There are 17 goals, and they speak about the sustainable lifestyle for the Africa. And then not for Africa really, but globally. But here we speak about Africa because we are Africans, and Africa is our business. And then the other thing was about minerals and resources, a very huge topic, minerals and resources. I'll just give you a breakdown still that are minerals. The continent of Africa actually holds approximately 30% of the world's mineral resources. Approximately 30% of the world's mineral resources are in Africa. And then, so speaking about some of the minerals, we have oil and natural gas. Africa accounts for about 12% of global oil resources and 80% of natural gas. And then number two, we have gold. 40% of the world's gold reserves are in Africa. We have chromium and platinum. 90% of the world's chromium and platinum reserves, are in Africa. Then number four, we have cobalt. 55% of the global cobalt resources are in Africa. We have what we call uranium, a very critical mineral. Also, mineral contributes to about 18% of the global production. Africa contributes about 18% of the global production of uranium. We have diamond. Approximately 73% of the world's diamond production comes from Africa. And then phosphorus rock accounts for about 21% of the world's phosphate rock production. Remember, phosphate is a very critical mineral in terms of fertilizer, fertilizer production. We have, and then another critical thing and a very serious thing is that 8%, number 8 is that arable land of Africa and fresh water. 65% of the world's arable land is in Africa, and then 10% of the internal renewable fresh water is also in Africa. That is also a breakdown, just a skeleton of what Africa holds in terms of its minerals. So these are some of the areas that we have been tackling, we have been focusing on, and I believe we still go and see some of the areas that we have not been able to exploit in terms of presenting them to you about our daily episodes daily episodes of the Change for African campaign. Issues of concern, these are real things that are actually we are supposed to be very serious about. And some of the ways we can be serious, speaking about being very serious, people may be finding like, how about being serious about it? Because mostly actually address the African youth and tell them, you are the young minds of Africa. And some of the very ways that you can be part of the revolutionary movement of Africa is to wake up, because this is a wake up call. And how? In these respective areas, speaking about governance, how can we make sure that actually it is for a fact that many people will say, you ask many people why many of the things are not happening in very many areas, even according to survey, a huge percentage would say It is because of the governance. It is because of how things are being run by some people in respective countries. So that should be the first issue of concern about governance in Africa. And then number two, when we speak about potential, we have immense potential. And then harnessing this potential actually needs people who understand that this is a very critical area. And if we tackle this area with this approach, we are able to make the very best of this. Out of this, we are able to make our continent actually grow in one way or the other because we have harnessed our potential. We have immense potential. Speaking about, our potential is attributed, or is we relate our potential to our minerals. What we have is minerals are the ones that give us the level of potential that we know we have. So we have immense potential when it comes to minerals, and those are the things that give us that potential. And then minerals, speaking about resources in Africa, we have human resource, we have the natural resources. All these are what we call the resources and the minerals that we have. So these minerals, these resources, these are the things that are guarantee us to be able to, because these are the things we can be able to tap in, make sure that we see how we utilize them, and able to maybe to set up industry to be able to refine our own minerals in Africa and then export them to different places of the world, and even manufacture our own components. Because speaking about gold, speaking about chromium, I mean, speaking about cobalt, diamond, all these minerals actually they are requisite raw materials for the manufacture of very many things. Because I've spoken before, we have spoken about what we call, we have spoken about cobalt, we have spoken about uranium, I've spoken about phosphate rock. Like let me say cobalt. DRC accounts for over 70% of the global supply of what, of cobalt, globally. And so, looking at what cobalt, the work of cobalt in its respective definition, that cobalt is actually a very critical mineral or raw material in manufacture of the, speaking about the technology things, not technology really, but the electronic devices. You have the laptops, you have the phones, you have the all these things, name them. So it is very critical in them. But you see, most of it is fetched from Africa to mostly China, which is now has turned to global industry, or the global manufacturer, China. And see, now that is what is happening. Why can't we be able to put up our own maybe structures on how we can refine these minerals, and then end up having the requisite technology? Let us see on how we can build our own people to be able to, depend and be able to carry out their own operations. Let us see on how we can make Africa even also be a manufacturer of for some of these things. It is an issue that may not take they may not happen very soon. But putting up structures will guarantee us a very stable future as Africa. Let us put up the requisite structures, the requisite conditions to be able to see. If you're speaking about manufacturing, let us be able to, if it is industries, let us put up industries in the requisite places in Africa to be able to one day be even a manufacturer of these things, because we produce what we do not consume, but we consume what we do not produce as Africa. That is it is a phrase to be able to look at about production, producing what you do not what you do not eat, and consuming, producing what you do not consume, and consuming what you do not produce. It is an issue that we have to tackle. So I think that is the breakdown of most of the things that we have been doing over the last 50 episodes. And some of the things that I'm trying, or we are trying to contemplate on, or to consider as we move forward, because they say that the best dancer knows when to leave the stage. And I can tell you for free that I'm not leaving the stage. Rather, what I'll be doing, I'll be changing the music, the music that we're playing. If now we are playing a particular music, we'll be playing this, and we continue to play the music, but we do not leave the stage. Because leaving the stage, it means that we're giving up, and we have no option, like giving up. uh we have no choice like that. It is not among the multiple choices, but the multiple choices is to see how we can make sure that we continue to make this even more and more understood by many people. So we have done 50 episodes. So we are trying to see that was our first half of the Change for African campaign daily episodes. Not the Change for African campaign in general, the Change for African campaign daily episodes. Those are very short episodes, very short ones that we have been tackling along the 69 days. So in the next set of things, we are trying to see maybe if we can take a break of 1 week and then come back. We need to agree on that. Or maybe if we can just continue next week doing our 51st episode of the Change for African campaign until we do 100 of them. It is a pleasure indeed to be able to, just having you speaking about these things, speaking about Africa. These are very important things. These are real, live, and well things. Now, we want youth who are very active. We want an African society that is very active, an African society that is very ready in terms of being able to understand that the current state of Africa, it is not the real reflection that it is not the real Africa. That Africa can do better than the ways it is doing. Africa, it is our motherland. It is time for Africa to reshuffle its business, the way it does things, and just do things in a different way. Because Africa indeed is a land of great potential. Only if we are able to embrace that, accept that, and then take it into action, then Africa is going to do great. African countries, they do have a lot of minerals. It is not understood why Africa still remains in the way it is over the years. Many of the African economies, or the GDP, so to speak, back then, like 60 years ago, most of these economies were actually equivalent to some of the most richest countries in the world currently. So it is an irony. I don't know why, because how then? Because even some of these African countries used to lend these countries money. So it means that these countries that have been able to develop, they took some very bold decisions to be able to reach where they are, to be able to see. They had some very pragmatic steps that they carried out and said that we have to make a difference. We really have to scale up and change the way we are doing things. So therefore, fellow Africans, it is a humble time, or it is an interesting time for me to be with you as we have been speaking about this. That is just a breakdown. It is a weekend edition, we call it, and very much appreciated for you being there for us. So what I'm urging us is to let us come together in terms of when we speak about Africa. Let us, if it's about bringing ideas, always feel free to give opinions so that we can use these opinions to be able to improve on what you do, to be able to make the civil education, to be able to even explore African current state of things, and just make people know about what is it that Africa, how Africa looks like currently, and how we can be able to improve such states. So therefore, fellow Africans, I do not want to go past that, but I wish you a lovely weekend. And if you have an opinion about us, maybe we should resume, or we should proceed with our daily episodes next week about the Change for African campaign, the 51st, or we should give it a 1 week break. You can just continue to give us your thoughts. And then I shall see that as we go. Maybe if we can do it, we can resume next week, our 51st or our second half, or give it a 1 week break. No problem. Let's meet that day as we continue to discuss about Africa. Africa is a land of great potential. It's only something that we need to do to be able to make Africa great. Remember, this is a huge population, and this huge population will languish into poverty if we do not make some very pragmatic steps about Africa. Speaking about climate change, all these things, we have to make bold steps and bold decisions. Thank you, fellow Africans. God bless you. Have a lovely day, and thank you very much.